Good morning and welcome to Tanya and You Chapter 11. We are continuing with the diagnosis. We're in Chapter 11. We're trying to understand the state of the battle, the state of the union. Where are we up to? Where are we at? What's the latest news? Who's winning today? So, over the last few weeks, we've been talking about, right, this battle, the battle that the internal battle that goes on within us between the two souls, right? We have the nefesh hakis, the godly soul, the divine soul, the altruistic soul. We have the nefesh habahamis, the natural soul, the animalistic soul. And there's a struggle, there's a battle. Like the Tanya uses the analogy of this small town, this small city, where these two kings are trying to take full control, and they shall rule the city, and they should completely have control over the city. And that's exactly what's happening within us. The godly soul, the animal soul, each wants to take control over our beautiful, beautiful city, our life, our body, our psyche, our emotions, our thoughts, speech, and actions. And last week we spoke about one end of the game, right? The Tanya says that basically there are different states or different positions that a person may be in this battle. He breaks it down into 3/5 positions. And last week we spoke about two of them, the tzaddik, which we loosely translated as the righteous one. But as we have studied last week, the tzaddik is not just your typical righteous person who does good things or generally does good things, but the tzaddik of the Tanya is a internal state of the person, that the nefesh hakis, the godly soul, took full control over the person. They not only do they not sin from time to time, they don't have even an urge, a temptation, an impulse to do anything other than divine acts, which is extremely extreme and perhaps a little bit unrelatable, because we don't really have in our lives people who are a tzaddik of the Tanya, maybe a rebbe. There's like few in every generation. In today's chapter, chapter 11, we talk about maybe the other extreme, the Russia, the wicked one, as we loosely translate it as. But as we'll see, it's not necessarily as wicked as we may think. The Russia. Russia means a wicked person. But sometimes you think about in your mind, how do you portray a wicked person? You may think someone who is a thug, a lowlife, someone who is so insensitive. He has bad character traits. He has a terrible temper, and he just does not know how to live properly with other people, civilized way. A wicked person. But the truth is, in the Tanya, when we use the diagnostic term Russia, you know who we're talking about? We're talking about me and you. It's very relatable, the Russia of the Tanya. Because, like we said, these terms, these definitions, are describing the inner battle that we're having. It's not a superficial title. It's not what happens on a superficial level. It's really talking about what's going on, the struggle within, the internal state of this person, of this battle. A tzaddik means they have got rid of their nefesh habahamis, their animal soul. They only have a godly soul. And the Russia means that they still have a nefesh habahamis. Their animal soul is somewhat still alive. Their godly soul is not fully in control. It's kind of losing grip. he may not give in most of the time, but the animal soul still has some type of control over the person. And the Tanya in chapter 11 goes through these two categories within the Rasha. We call it a Rasha Gomor and the Rasha She'eni Gomor, a complete Rasha and a incomplete Rasha. So we'll first talk about the incomplete Rasha. And within this level, this category of a Rasha, and as we'll see, it's pretty much talking about me and you. Most people are in this category. We talk about it from the two extremes because the Tanya says there are many, many, many levels and sub-levels within this category. In other words, the idea that I have a nefesh olikis, I have a godly soul, and it's not fully in control. There are some breaches from time to time. And when there's a breach, there often is a rebound. I come back. I have remorse. I say, oh, Gaval, this was terrible. I'm never going to do it again. And then I do it again, right? And then I feel bad. And then I do it again, right? So depending on how often this breach happens and how bad of a breach is it, how sinful was this act? So there are many levels of Rasha, of how wicked a person is. Again, wicked in this diagnostic term of how much of a breach could occur in a person's life. So the Tanya starts from a very mild level. And mind you, this mild level is something that I would love to reach one day. And then it goes to the more extreme level, but all within the same category of a incomplete Rasha. And it's important to understand that the Tanya here is not judging. The Tanya is telling us we have to understand who we are. In order to, like we say, half of the cure is knowing the illness. We have to first diagnose ourselves. What is my illness? What is my problem? Who am I? What is the state of the battle? And then I can know how to grow, how to fix it. So this is what the Tanya is doing over here in these few chapters. First telling us, who are you? Don't fool yourself. Don't think you're greater than you are. Don't think you are less than you are. Know who you are, and now I'll give you the tools to work with. So what is a mild Rasha? This is someone who, for the most part, their nefesh ho'elikis, their godly soul, is in control. They're living an altruistic life. They're giving to others. They are a refined human being. On a religious standpoint, they are doing all that God wants from them. There's no sinful acts. The problem is that within them, they still have a temptation, an urge to do something negative, something sinful. But for the most part, they're in control. They don't allow it to come to fruition. They don't allow this urge to manifest itself. However, once in a while, they have a weak moment. Once in a while, there's a small little breach, and their animal soul takes control of them, perhaps for a brief moment, for a few seconds, for a few minutes, and right away, there's a rebound. It's extremely, it's a slight breach. It could be an infrequent breach. But the point is, the nefesh ho'elikis, the godly soul, isn't able to completely hold the line. The front line of the battle is not completely secure. You know, when I think of war these days, I'm always thinking about what's happening in Israel, happening in Gaza. And, you know, we say, northern Gaza is fully in control. We have broken all the, combat soldiers, whatever. But then once in a while, like this morning, unfortunately, there's a rocket from northern Gaza into Israel. Oh, so you're not fully in control. You're generally in control. there are very few rockets. It's only every few days. It's not a few times a day. But you're not completely in control if there's every once in a while there could be even a minor breach. The same is true with our inner battle. We're not fully in control if once in a while, maybe once a year, maybe once every 6 months, there's a little breach. And even what this breach is, again, this is the very mild Russia. What is this breach, Tanya says? It could be a very light breach, very refined type of sin, if you could say so. You had a moment of weakness. You lost your cool. You lost your patience. It's a breach. It's a moment that your nefesh or lakis is not fully in control. We talk about speech. Maybe you spoke something that maybe wasn't so sensitive to others. Maybe you're speaking a little bit negative about another person, lashon hara, or maybe it was said in a negative connotation, which is a very light type of sin, but it's a problem. And the Tanya goes so much further to say it could be even, it wasn't even something that you did, and not something that you said, but it could be something that you thought about, because the Torah tells us that even our thoughts have to be pure. And if we have a sinful thought, that itself is already an expression of who? Godly or animal soul? The animal soul. So you're not fully in control. He uses the idea that you're not even supposed to be thinking about doing a sin or thinking about something that could be a temptation. Thinking about the intercourse of male and female, as it says, even thinking about it in a sinful way is something that is a sin. And you could say, it's just a little thought. It's not who I am. It's so removed from me. Thinking about it is already a problem. Now, you may say, oh, who doesn't think about these things? We're not judging now. That's the point. The point is, who is in control? Are you a tzaddik or are you not a tzaddik? Which means, does your animal soul have even a little bit of control over the person? And if the answer is yes, even very mild, you're already in this category of a Russia, she'ena gomer, an incomplete Russia. Someone who wastes some time. Every moment should be used up wisely. And sometimes they say, you know what? I really should be doing something productive, but I'm just lazy. That already is something which is coming from your animal soul. So these are very, very mild problems. I wish I was this type of Russia, who, for the most part, other than these small little things here and there, someone who's fully following their godly soul. And part of this as well is what happens after. Right after a person is perhaps has that weak moment, there's a rebound. Right after this, we have remorse. What did I just do? I fell. Okay, and now what? Now we are able to get back on our feet. We have what we say charata. We have a regret for what we did. We won't do it again. We do teshuvah. God, please forgive me. And then what happens? It may be the next day, it may be the next week, it may be in 6 months. We do it again. But the important point that the Tanya makes over here is that even in between, even during times that we are not failing, the fact that we are able to fail, which means we're not fully holding the line, we're not fully in control, the nefesh halakis, the godly soul isn't fully in control, we are already in this category of a Russia. That is a very mild Russia. Then there's maybe a more extreme type of Russia. And again, still in the same category. The more extreme Russia is the exact opposite. Someone who does sins very frequently. Perhaps, maybe the living a sinful life, far from the ways of God. In all areas, in thought, in speech, in action, in emotions, in just lifestyle, in everything that they do, they are a sinful person. However, their nefesh habahamis, their animal soul, is not fully in control because every once in a while, they feel remorse. They say, "Oi, I really shouldn't be doing this." Now, this remorse may be so weak, it isn't strong enough to actually change the person's actions. It may not hold them back from what they're doing, but they feel bad about what they do. Now, this feeling of feeling bad, where does it stem from? It's a very weak feeling at this moment. But where does it come from? Does it come from the animal soul, or does it come from the godly soul? The feeling of remorse, the feeling of guilt, even if it's a very weak feeling, comes from the godly soul. So we can't say that our animal soul is 100% in control at this moment because I at least feel bad for what I'm doing. Now, we're hoping that we don't stay at that point. We actually are able to control ourselves. But like if we're diagnosing the problem, we're not a completely under the control of our nefesh habahamis, of our animal soul. A good doctor is a doctor that knows how to diagnose, a doctor that knows not to be judgmental. No one wants to go to a doctor and the doctor says, "Listen, Mendel, it's really your fault. You're really not in control of yourself. You shouldn't be living this type of thing. You shouldn't be eating this. You shouldn't be doing this. It's really your problem." I don't want to go to that doctor. I want a doctor who's going to diagnose me, tell me what the issue is, and pump me up and encourage me. Mendel, you can do this. This is what you have to do. You have to do this, you have to do that, and this is how we can get out of this problem. That's what I want, right? The Tanya is a good doctor. We're not blaming anyone. We're not judging anyone. We're first trying to diagnose the problem. Who are we? So this is what the Tanya in chapter 11 and 12 was going to do. Then we're going to give you tools on how to deal with it. But it's important to be honest with ourselves. The mere fact that a person has regret, even if it's weak and it does not take control over the person, that itself is already a sign. My godly soul is still somewhat alive. Still has some type of effect and influence on the person. They say this story. It was the night after Yom Kippur, and the rabbi of the town, the synagogue, gave a very, very inspiring sermon over Yom Kippur, and the town's ganav, the town's thief, decided he got to come clean. Yom Kippur, he's inspired, and he wants to come clean. So comes to the rabbi after he's eating his bagel and his lox, break the fast, and after Yom Kippur, he says, "Rabbi, I need to speak to you in your office privately." Sure. So we come to the office, and he comes with this big bag, and he says, "Listen, I've been the town's ganav for this past year, and I want to return everything. I want to come clean." And so he starts opening the bag. He says, this thing belongs to Goldberg, this thing belongs to Goldstein, this thing belongs to Lieberman, and he starts going through everyone that all the things that he took from all the people from the community. I want to return everything. Okay, great. Wow, the rabbi is very inspired. Look, I gave a sermon and someone actually listened, right? And wow, look, a person is willing to do make such a change in his life. Very impressed. After he leaves, the rabbi is looking around and he notices that his watch is missing. My gold watch is missing. He calls the thief. He says, "Tell me what's going on. What happened to my watch?" Your watch. Takes it out of his pocket. Here's your watch. He says, "I don't understand. You came to come clean. You wanted to do teshuvah. You're returning everything. What is this? You're taking my watch." He said, "Listen, teshuvah is teshuvah. Repentance is repentance, but business is business." So the point of it here is that sometimes we're very confused and very there's a lot going on within us. On the one hand, we want to do what's wrong. On the other hand, we feel bad. We want to do what's right. This turmoil, this tugging back and forth. That's the Russia. And like you said, there's different extremes. You have one person who is, in our minds, the greatest tzaddik, right? Only most righteous person in every area in life, in thought, in speech, in action. Everything is exactly an expression of godliness. There's no self, there's no ego, there's nothing. Everything is fully for Hashem, fully for God. But once in a while, once a year, they slip for a few seconds and they quickly get themselves back up. That's on one end. The other end is someone who's living a sinful life to the extreme. But once in a while, they have a feeling of remorse, and right after that, they go back to their sinful ways. These two people, these two extremes, are all in the same category of an incomplete Russia. In other words, their godly soul is not fully in control, and their animal soul is not fully in control. That is all one category. Nefesh, Russia, she'enoi gamor, an incomplete Russia. Then we have the other extreme, the complete Russia. The end of the chapter, in chapter 11, we talk about, well, what is a complete Russia? We have an incomplete. What's a Russia Gamor, a complete Russia? And for that, the Tanya says, could you even imagine someone who is so sinful that they don't even feel guilty? Not just at the moment. They never feel guilty. They never feel remorse. Now, between me and you, the most sinful people, murderers and serial killers, for the most part, there is some type of remorse. I mean, maybe some real extreme cases that there's zero regret and zero remorse. But most people, even the ones who are who reach very low state in life, at the end of the day, there is some type of remorse once in a while. But to have someone who has zero remorse, that's a complete Russia. That is already a complete Russia. And that is the most extreme case in this battle. That they not only has a godly soul not taking full control, not only as it hasn't taken it partial control, it lost control. The godly soul lost control. The animal soul is now fully in control, so much so it doesn't even allow the godly soul to express itself in a remorse. This is a very rare breed. Almost hard to come by, almost hard to find. But again, you got to diagnose this. If someone is in this category, you know who you are, or it's important to know that this is considered a Russia Gummer. Maybe more important to know is that because most of us or all of us are not in this category, it's so hard to find someone in this category. So that itself is a relief. I'm not a complete Russian. I know that my godly soul is somewhat in control. A complete Russia is where the animal soul is fully in control. Now, like we said, the idea over here is not to blame, but to build ourselves up, to pump us up and say, you know what, we can do it. We know who we are. We'll give you the tools to make it work. The amazing thing that the end of the chapter says, and it's like literally the last line, and he says like this: even the Russia Gomer, even the complete Russia, the Russia who seemingly the godly soul lost control. That's it. They still have a godly soul. It's not that they got rid of their godly soul. It's just it's sleeping in a deep sleep. But it's still there. And he quotes something from the Talmud. The Talmud says that when you have 10 people in a room together, Shchinta Shayu, the divine presence rests. Because there are 10 godly souls in one room, there's an extra layer, an extra feeling, an extra energy of God's Shekhinah, God's energy. In other words, the Talmud doesn't differentiate what state in the battle, what type of person is in this room. Is it a righteous person? Is it someone who is doing righteous things? Is it a Rasha She'enei Go? No. If you're there and you have 10 people, men and or women, are in the room together, and they have the nefesh, they have a godly soul. Even the Tanya argues, even if they are a Rasha Gomor, a complete Rasha, it doesn't mean that their godly soul is not there. It's just sleeping. It's not a control. It's on the back burner. It's still there, and therefore, them being part of this group of 10, it already draws down an extra level of Hashem Shekhinah, which is a fascinating thing, because sometimes you can think that Tanya is here to like put down. Here you see, no, we're diagnosing here, but ultimately we're trying to lift up. And the Tanya is saying, what good could I find in the Rasha Gomer? What's a positive element in the complete Rasha? Someone who doesn't even have remorse, a feeling of remorse. I mean, how bad can you get? And I said, no. Even this person has to find like something positive about them. Even this person has the godly soul. And therefore, what does that mean? They still have hope. They still have hope. You got to bring it out. You got to inspire. You got to find it. Ignite that soul. Ignite that spark. It's there. That's the time. It's not there to put down. It's only there to lift up. And just to conclude with an interesting story, there's once this Jew who was visiting the Rebbe. Now, this Jew did not consider himself a chassid, a disciple of the Rebbe, or someone who followed in the Hasidic way of life. And the conversation went, and I'm not sure exactly what, I think the Rebbe expressed himself something about like, you are my chassid, or you are a chassid. And he said like, I'm not really a chassid. That's not who I am. The Rebbe said, listen, do you know what a chassid is? Someone who wakes up in the morning, and the first thing that they say after thanking God for life, modani, what the thought that comes to mind is, how am I going to be a better person today than I was yesterday? That's a chassid. Someone who is working on themselves to grow. We all have challenges. We're not perfect. We have weak moments. But if we're thinking about, how am I going to be better today? That's a chassid. And the truth is, if we want to be better today than we were yesterday, it doesn't always start in the morning. Sometimes it starts at night, the way we go to sleep. And that's the idea. We have this concept of, before we go to sleep, we say the Shema. And besides for reciting the words of the Shema, we also take a few moments to contemplate on our day and think about, how was our day? Where did it go right? And where did it go wrong? And most importantly, the conclusion has to be the same. The conclusion of this thought process is, tomorrow will be different. It may have been good today. Tomorrow's going to be even better. Today, I might have had not such a good day. Tomorrow's going to be better. We have to do whatever's in our control to say, you know what? Today was today. Tomorrow is going to be better. And then when we wake up in the morning, we say, today will be a better person than we were yesterday. Right? Even baby steps. As long as we're headed in the right direction, we're growing. That's the main thing. So we'll see how the Tanya develops this in the next chapter, chapter 12, when we talk about the Beinoni, which the Beinoni is the in-betweener, the person who isn't a tzaddik, but also isn't a Rasha. It's a very unique type of state to be in. And truth is that the book of the Tanya is actually called the book of the Beinoni, because really we should always strive to be a Beinoni, and we'll have more about that next week. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Rabbi. That was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye. See you all.
Thank you.
Bye, Susan.